Get started. Let the roll call show that Councilor Robertson, Councilor Perry, Councilor Grenier, Councilor Gardner, Councilor Osher, and Councilor Maynard are present. Agenda review. Don't think we have anything new to put on the agenda. So I will move on to item number 3, approval of the minutes of October 19, 2020 council meeting. If I could get a motion, please.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Does anyone have any changes or additions to the council meeting minutes? Nancy did a wonderful job again. All right, then Nancy, I will ask you to take a vote of council, please.
Okay. Councilor Grenier?
Favor.
Councilor Robertson?
In favor.
Councilor Gardner?
In favor?
Councilor Maynard?
In favor?
Councilor Perry?
In favor.
Councilor Osher?
Favor.
And Councilor Coons?
Abstain, because I don't know what we're voting on.
Council minutes.
Oh, sure, in favor.
So the vote is 7 in favor and there are none opposed.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to public hearings. You forgot my gavel, but to public hearing A, to consider a Class 1 malt, spirituous, and vinous liquor license, special amusement permit for music, dancing, and entertainment, and vitulers license to the University of Maine, doing business as Collins Center for the Arts, 5746 Collins Center. And this was continued from October 19th, 2020. So Dave, do you have anything to add?
I do. Good evening, folks. I'm Dave Mylan, and I'm the Director of Office of Community Development. First, may I quickly say that as a regular contributor to the monthly town council meetings, I would like to personally thank the council chair for the way in which she conducts these public meetings. You make it comfortable for all attendees to engage with the town council while maintaining a professional and inclusive atmosphere. I appreciate it very much, Cindy. And regarding this application, staff has reviewed all of the license applications, conducted inspections, and recommends the approval of the license.
Great. Thank you very much, Dave, for all the kind words. And is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak for or against the issuing of this license?
I have no members of the public in attendance at the moment.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess no one's raised their hands, so we will close public hearing A and move on to public hearing B to consider a vitulers license for DMCP Group LLC, doing business as Dunkin' Donuts, 3 Stillwater Avenue.
Again, this is Dave Mylan, and staff has reviewed the application, conducted inspections, and recommends approval of a license.
All right. And Belle, still no public members?
Still nobody here.
All righty. Then I will close public hearing B, move on to public hearing C to consider a Class 1 malt, spirituous, and vinous liquor license and vitulers license for Farnsworth Enterprises, Inc., doing business as Pat's Pizza, 11 Mill Street. Dave?
Staff has reviewed the applications, conducted the inspections, and recommends approval of the license.
All right. And Town of Orono, anyone raising their hands?
Nobody raising their hands.
Okay. Does council have anything to say on any of these licenses? All right. Thank you very much. Closing public hearing C, moving on to public hearing D to consider ordinance amendments to the Town of Orono ordinances, Chapter 18, Land Use, Section 18-130, excavation, removal, and filling of lands. Those were tough words. I don't know why. Kyle, I think you're up for this one.
Yep. Can everyone hear me okay?
Can
Yeah.
we bring Kyle onto the screen so people can see him too?
What?
I didn't anticipate that. That's going to take just a couple minutes to do. So, okay,
Never
so I
mind.
will not do it. Okay.
Don't worry about it.
All right. You can hear me though?
We can. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Kyle Drexler, town planner. So this ordinance amendment, as Council Chair mentioned, is for excavation, removal, and filling of lands. In general, it's our earthwork ordinance. The draft language has gone through council committee, multiple planning board public hearings to add some revisions, and then went back to council to kind of go over those recommendations. In general, the structure of the section was kind of staying the same. It was to kind of break down different types of earth moving activities into either being exempted from needing a permit, requiring a permit from the code officer, or requiring site plan approval from the planning board. What the draft language really focused on was the impact of different earth moving activities and the level of permitting that would be required. Whereas before it was just very across the board, this amount requires a permit, this amount requires planning board review. We tried to take a look at more the gray area and the nuances of different lots and different areas in town and apply the level of review that was appropriate to each unique situation. So things like increasing the amount of fill or material allowed through a permit on large lots in the rural area versus smaller lots, in the downtown area, things like that. As well, we required applicants for these types of projects to require evidence after the fact of types of fill, amounts, to verify those things to make sure that what was approved through the permit was actually done on the ground. So if anyone has any questions or wants further explanation on any specifics, I'm happy to go into it, but I think that's a general overview of the key changes that were made.
And Kyle, it looks like there's no public on, so there's no public questions.
Sure.
And council will see this again in December. Is that the? Yeah.
Correct. You would still have to go for adoption.
Okay. But does any councilors have any questions at this point?
Cindy, I don't have a question. I'd just like to say that I think this proposed revision has received a great deal of scrutiny from the council, public input, planning board review. So I'm really happy with the job that Kyle has done with this.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing that no one has any other questions, I will close public hearing D and move on to public hearing E to consider ordinance amendments to the Town of Orono Ordinances, Chapter 18, Land Use, Section 18-140, signs to permit an exemption for the Town of Orono to own and operate a digital sign adjacent to the municipal offices on Main Street in the Village Commercial District. And Kyle will do this too.
Sure. So this ordinance amendment is a small minor change to our section for signage in the land use ordinance. It is not a complete overhaul of the sign ordinance language, which may come sometime in the future. But the purpose of this was really just to allow the town to operate an electronic sign out in front along Main Street in front of the town office and public safety building. I don't know if Sophie, if you wanted to speak any more towards the reasoning why this is coming now and the specifics of that, but if not, I can just move on.
Sure, I can if council would like to hear. The town actually received grant funds to purchase an electronic sign. An electronic sign will allow us to put more than 3 lines or 2 lines of text up and allow that to change. So for example, today we could have a reminder to the community that state law now or executive order now requires masks to be worn in all public spaces, both indoors and out. We could talk about the fact that we have the Scott Scripture Memorial Community Thanksgiving dinner coming up, and people should contact us. You know, I could go on that. That there's a parking ban in effect. So the thought being that there's an awful lot of information to communicate to people. We want to do it in a safe way. When we approached the council, we made it very clear that we would be doing this in a way that tried to maintain the council's expectations for a more historic corridor, in that there aren't going to be bright colors, flashing neon lights, that kind of stuff. This will allow us, when we can get the sign in, it has been ordered. When we can get it in, we'll be able to actually use it and not be violating our own ordinances, which doesn't sound like a good idea. The violating our own ordinance part.
That part, yeah.
Sophie, is the sign that we're ordering similar to the VZ one that just went up recently? It's very
Yeah, so-
tasteful, I think.
I was thinking the same thing.
So we've had discussion in amongst staff about, number one, what to put on the top of it, because we know we've had a discussion here about rebranding the town. So Belle is kind of doing some reconnaissance on whether or not we could do something that could easily be changed and put our information, our new branding on it. And then below, when I drove through VZ the other day, you know, they had some bright colors out, which were very eye-catching and were great. It would be our intent, though, to not have those bright colors. But I do think it's tasteful. And I think staff did a great job picking it out. It wasn't me.
So from a process standpoint, this ordinance language, because of the timing, has not gone for a planning board public hearing yet. It's on the agenda for next week's planning board meeting. So because it's such a small revision, it's just the footnote in that section. If the planning board were to recommend some changes, then this may have to come back to council for a little more discussion and another public hearing. But barring any recommended changes from the planning board, then this would be able to go to a vote at next month's meeting, I think.
Great, thank you, Kyle. I just checked that we do not have any public to comment. Does any other counselor have any questions or comments? All right. Yes, VZ had a lovely green, I thought worked very well. I will close public hearing E and move on to acknowledgements by council members. And I'll start with Cheryl because she's in the top corner of my screen.
I get to acknowledge the vote because I know everybody's going to do that. So acknowledgements to all those people that worked really, really hard on Tuesday. And I'll let everybody else, you guys can all talk about that if you want. I did have something that I wanted to acknowledge, and recently I think we've had like 2 or 3 power outages in the last month at my house. But I would like to acknowledge the crews because I've actually seen the giant trees that have taken down the power lines and the events that have happened and taken down these power lines. And even though, you know, it requires some patience to get your electricity back up and running, the crews that have been out there, either, you know, I don't know if they're always our crews, but it's amazing what they're doing. And I know we're coming into winter and there's going to be some more wind events. So I just would encourage people to be patient. But the amount of time that they spend and the urgency and the immediacy that they are on these things is really amazing. So I'm just anticipating winter, but thank you, crews, to get our power back up and running. Thank you.
Lori, do you have anything?
No, I guess I don't. Just that our staff is great, and I'm so pleased. Still riding high on what a great job they did on the election. And I guess I'm so proud of our town, what a great turnout we had. So other than that, that's it for today.
Thank you. Sam.
Sure. Hi, thank you. A few things. Yes, congratulations to the election staff for an incredible job well done. And also, of course, congratulations to Lori on her campaign and successfully
Thank you.
that campaign. Mazel tov. This is fantastic. Good luck. I want to acknowledge the folks who are still diligently wearing their masks. Thank you. Please remain diligent. In fact, kick it up a notch or two. That'd be great. I would like to acknowledge the town staff who implemented the Boo Box program to replace Trunk or Treat. That was fantastic, incredibly well received. Always nice to see Officer Lesky when he's not pulling me over. And I'd like to also acknowledge our current council right here, that we've had some very rigorous discussions as of late, and we've maintained civil discourse, and it's been a pleasure to be part of that. And I want to do a little tip of the hat for that. I'm almost done. And regarding the power outage, Cheryl, I do want to remind folks to try not to run into power poles. So that will help reduce the power outage we have. And
That would be great.
would be good. Just a subtle hint, just a subtle reminder. And then, of course, Cindy, thank you for everything you've done. You will be missed, and I just want to thank you personally. And I probably will do it again because you know me. I've learned a lot from you, and it's been a joy to work with you for the last 6 years.
You got it right there.
Connie.
Megan.
Yes, I happened to be standing in the front windows of the Loon when the car crashed into the pole the other night. And I will say that although I was not happy to lose power for 12 hours, the response from Orono Police and Fire was spectacular. I mean, granted, the person did crash their car directly in front of the police station, but they were out there. They had the scene blocked off, traffic rerouted. I mean, it was lickety split. Everything was under control. So kudos to them on a job well done. Yes, masks. I was happy to see that within hours of the governor's executive order, folks were walking around town wearing their masks in Orono. I will also say, as someone who runs a small business, that I come into contact with a lot of different folks in the community and from the surrounding area. And there are still a lot of people who they're not taking it seriously enough. And that's not because they're science deniers, but because they're just maybe a little too relaxed about how, safe we've been up here so far. So, be vigilant, folks, and do wear your masks. Even if you're just getting up from a table to walk across the room, you got to wear that mask. It's very important. Cases are on the rise. And I would also like to echo some of the comments, thanking you, Cindy. When I first joined council, I was a little bit terrified because I really didn't know how to be a counselor. And, your institutional knowledge and your, steady, calm demeanor. And I mean, all of this helped me learn a lot about how to be a counselor. And so thank you so much for your service.
Thank you very much. Councilor Terry.
I would like to remind everybody, unfortunately, we don't have any citizens watching right now, but the importance of the mask wearing. If people are following, CDC announced for the first time over 200 cases today. And I think people need to realize that that's just people who went and got tested. So if it's that high, it's probably pretty rampant in most places. So to be aware of that and to really take precautions. I know Orono does well, but when I travel up north, and that's just a simple one day a week, no one does it up there. So I have to really prepare for taking care of myself. So if you leave Orono, you're going to run a bigger risk, unfortunately, of possibly being with somebody. Also, I also want to say, Cindy, I'm going to miss you. You're such a well-balanced individual that knows how to navigate things, especially when they get a little tense. I know that we sometimes can be a bit much in the sense of whatever our passions are, but you do a great job of making sure that things go on and they move smoothly, and I will miss that dearly. You're a great person. I'm glad I got to know you on the council, and I hope that this is not the last time we'll see you around here.
Thank you very much. It's been wonderful to work with you all, and no, I'm not gone forever. Tom.
Thanks, Cindy. I join the chorus in thanking you for your hard work. I know how important your leadership has been to all of us and to Sophie, and we greatly appreciate your willingness to do it this number of years. I'd also like to echo Sam's comment and acknowledge Lori Osha's win on Tuesday and joining the Maine State House of Representatives. It's going to be really nice to know that we have that close contact with the legislature, and I'm sure that Orono is going to be very well represented by her. I'd also like to acknowledge the good job the University of Maine has done in being very forthright in providing information to the community on what's happening on campus in regard to COVID-19. I think they've been very upfront about it, and I really appreciate that. I'm sure the community does as well. That's it for me.
Thank you very much. And I would just like to echo my congratulations to Lori, and we all just remember, we all know where you are.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that.
Sure. So we will move on to unfinished business. I don't believe we have any. So now I will take a motion for the consent agenda, to move the consent agenda.
Move approval.
All right. Cheryl, you want a second? Okay. All right. Nancy, would you take a call of the vote, please?
Councilor Grenier,
In favor.
Councilor Robertson,
In favor.
Councilor Gardner,
In favor.
Councilor Maynard,
In favor?
Councilor Perry,
In favor.
Councilor Osher,
Favor.
and Councilor Kuntz.
In favor.
And the vote is 7 in favor, and there were none opposed.
Great. Thank you very much. Moving on to new business, order 20-187. I'm going to ask for a motion to table this order. The town manager and the bidder have not had a chance to get together to finalize the negotiations. So if I could get a motion to table this to the next council meeting.
So moved.
And,
Second.
all right. And so this could be a council meeting, a special council meeting, or a regular council meeting, whichever one comes first. So Nancy, if you would take a vote on the table.
Councilor Grenier,
In favor.
Councilor Robertson,
In favor.
Councilor Gardner,
In favor.
Councilor Maynard,
In favor?
Councilor Perry,
In favor.
Councilor Osher,
In favor.
Councilor Kuntz,
In favor.
and the vote is 7 in favor, and there were none opposed.
Great. Thank you. Order 20-188, order authorizing the town manager to make the following budget adjustments to the adopted FY21 municipal budget. 1, increase the downtown and transit-oriented tax increment financing district DTTOTIF expense budget $8,825 to cover expenses related to the 2020 bond issuance with funds drawn from the DTTO TIF development program. Transfer $5,750 from the debt budget to the other budget for expenses associated with employee benefits, and transfer $3,950 from the debt budget to the fire department budget for expenses associated with an emergency management. I'll take a motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
All right. Sophie, you want to explain all those?
I'm happy to. So when we issued the 2020 bond just a few weeks ago, we had a total of $134,000 of savings this year. I'm rounding here. $77,000 of that will show on the WPCF budget. And the rest of it, $57,125, will show on the general fund side, which is great news, right? Money we don't need to spend. I am going to make adjustments within the budget line, the debt budget line, because we shifted some principal and expense accounts. I can do that without council approval. What I don't have approval to do is to move things from one cost center to another. So for example, debt is a cost center, other is a cost center. So the downtown transit oriented TIF, we refunded the USDA bond that we used for the UCU, the joint UCU project. And it actually, because of the timing, we will have to pay interest twice this year, which is great because it will take money off what we have to pay moving forward. But it's $8,800 that we have to pay there. So we have the money in the development program. I'm just asking for your permission to be able to increase the budget so that we don't overspend. The remaining funds, $57.50 for the other budget related to employee benefits and $39.50 related to emergency management. Those are accounts I've talked to council right after we adopted the budget, that when we put the Excel spreadsheet together, we did not tie in those new budget lines. So we adopted a budget that when you looked at it, it looks like you funded it, but it's not in the total budget at the end. So my suggestion is that we take some of the savings that we're going to see in the debt budget and just move it into those accounts to fund what you already looked at and had approved. And then my suggestion is with the rest of the savings, we leave it in the debt budget line. I will move some things around so that it looks reasonable and you can see what we think we're going to spend this year. And with WPCF, I will likely move that $77,000 down for right now into payment to infrastructure, which is where we lapse everything to at the end of the year.
Good. We talked a little bit about this at the finance meeting.
We did.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? I think it makes sense to align the budget. So with that, Nancy, I'll ask you to take a roll call vote on order 20-188.
Councilor Grenier,
In favor?
Councilor Robertson,
In favor.
Councilor Gardner,
In favor.
Councilor Maynard,
In favor.
Councilor Perry,
In favor.
Councilor Osher,
In favor.
and Councilor Coons.
In favor.
And the vote is 7 in favor, and there were none opposed.
Thank you, Nancy. Moving on to order 20-189, order authorizing the town manager to purchase a photocopier from Transco Business Solutions of Augusta, Maine at a cost not to exceed $13,800 with funds drawn from the CTCL election grant. Take a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
Nancy, write those down any way you want.
We didn't make our practice this week.
Sophie, is this you? You're still muted.
The CTCL election grant was the private funds that we received totaling $159,025 to be used in conjunction with the election. Staff has been doing a really good job of making sure that we comply with the letter of the agreement and I think the intent, but also identifying some of the longer term costs associated with this election. When this election came around, we were in a position of having to do a lot more internal work, and our photocopier downstairs did not like it. It is tired. So the plan is to retire that up to my office because I am not as important as the town clerk's office, the election office. And mine will go over to public safety. And public safeties, which is on its last leg, will go out to public works because we figured Rob. So this is an outright purchase for $13,800 using those grant funds. And it also includes 3 other printers that hook up directly to elections laptops. So this was equipment that those the printers, the laptops, we couldn't have done the election without the equipment that we received. So we are suggesting that we move forward with this and no increase in the maintenance contract, even though we're absorbing they're absorbing more equipment. Shelley drives a hard bargain.
She does. And this fits in the grant because it's election related.
Yep. This is a weird grant. We actually received the check for $159,025. Most of the time we have to spend all of the money and then report and get it back. So this is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Are there some more of those grants kicking around? I mean, it sounds like a lovely thing. Let's rack them in, you know?
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I do. Sophie, what is so unique about purchasing a piece of equipment when most places rent them and they just turn them over as they're ready for the next generation, which kind of include service contracts with them? Why is this different?
So we've done it both ways here, Terry. You spend more money with your service contract because you're actually rolling a lease payment into it. So this doesn't include a lease payment, and the outright purchase is allowed by the grant. A lease is not allowed. A long-term lease is not allowed by the grant.
Any other questions, comments?
I think it makes perfect sense, and I like the repurposing, although my apologies to Public Works.
But I don't think they have one now, so I think it's a.
Plus, they got the whacker noose in a couple years ago, so this is okay. We can.
That's their
balance
credit.
the whole thing, right?
With that, I will ask Nancy to take a roll call vote on 20-189.
Councilor Grenier,
In favor?
Councilor Robertson,
Yes, in favor.
Councilor Gardner,
In favor?
Councilor Maynard,
In favor?
Councilor Perry,
In favor.
Councilor Osher,
In favor?
and Councilor Coates.
In favor.
And the vote is 7 in favor, and there were none opposed.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, moving on to council committee and representative reports. Cheryl, do you want to report?
Sure. So we met October 22nd, I think, right after our council meeting. We're always going to be meeting after the council meeting, I guess. We're putting together a draft proposal for the Department of Environmental Protection. That's almost done. That's due November 16th. And this is to implement and extend Orono's recycling program, and that's to help out some of our developments. We have about 3,500 residents and tenants in Orono who have no access to recycling. So I think I talked a little bit about that.
Yep.
The grant is the parameters is we can apply for up to 40,000. I think we're looking at about 32,000. It's a 2-year grant, which is nice. So it won't impact our budget until 2023. So that's a good thing if we need to start talking about sustainability. It involves moving 3 containers to the landfill, to Orono's landfill. We had the committee had Jim Dunning came on and joined our Zoom meeting and gave us some cost that what it would cost for the grant, mostly for the grant because the town's not going to be funding this, and so that's pretty much ready to rock and roll. There's another idea out there for a swap shop, which is a place for people to bring free, gently used or used maybe electronics. I'm going to say toaster. Your toaster doesn't work, or you have a 2-hole toaster and now you want a 4-hole toaster. So we can bring, setting up something in Orono, again, it's extending our waste diversion. It's creating, it's helping with our environmental footprint, which is what the charge was for this committee. And to set up something also at the landfill that people can take, and lots of communities, lots of municipalities have them, can take their something that they've used, but they don't necessarily need to be thrown out, and drop it off, and then have people who need a 2-hole toaster to come up to the shop. This is an idea. We haven't had any kind of discussion at length about it, but and it will have to be brought to council first. So we're just kind of exploring kind of new things that we can do to help out just a little bit. So I will have a report after the next committee meeting. Also, I also want to add that because we are not a public, we haven't gone public, and we could invite the public, I guess, if they wanted to. I also wrote just a little blurb or a little article for the Observer that should come out just to help people, or just to keep people informed and engage the community a little bit about what's happening. So with us. So thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Sarah. Tom?
We had a Finance and Operations Committee meeting last week. We had a high-level overview of the audit findings from Sophie, which were positive and encouraging. We will see the entire audit in the near future. We had an overview of the sale of the bonds and the budgetary impact that has. We reviewed the budget adjustments that were just approved by council tonight, and were supportive of those adjustments. We reviewed some modifications in the personnel policy, some minor revisions really, which we were fine with, and those are going to continue to be looked at, and we will see them as a proposed change in the near future. And that's what we do. And then we reviewed the monthly financial reports, and everything looks pretty good there.
Great. Thank you, Tom.
Yep.
Terry?
Yeah, our committee met on the 15th of October, and we discussed, again, the zone change amending the standard related to self-storage on 985, and the owner wanting to expand that facility. We decided we're moving forward with the zone change, with having the owner to come forward with a plan. So they're at that spot right now. Kyle spoke of the excavation fill ordinance revision, gave us the updates from the planning board and what the recommended change was. We discussed that. There was a citizen's request we discussed. It was about the council's resolution supporting the change to changing the universal health care to equitable health care. made changes and accepted it by the committee. And then last, there was a request to apply for DEP waste diversion grant funds. The grant application to implement a pilot program for recycling for landlords of large complexes, which Cheryl is working on the early stages of that. And that's what I have.
Great, thank you. Megan?
Sure. The Comp Plan Implementation Committee met on November 2nd, and we had one thing to discuss that evening, which was how we're going to tackle regulating rental activities in Orono. So far, we've kind of been working at it piecemeal and looking at different types of rentals, long-term, short-term, Airbnb style, all different types of rentals in Orono, and in different parts of the ordinance and different pieces. And so we talked about maybe trying to move forward with something a bit more unified that ties all rental activities in together, just to make it a little more coherent and cohesive. And that was it.
Great. Sam or Lori, do you have anything you want to report on?
Nothing for me.
Lori?
Yes, I attended the Growth Smart Maine annual conference. It's usually in Biddeford, but this year, because of COVID, they had satellite locations. So I was able to just go over to Jeff's Catering, where Eastern Maine Development Corporation was hosting. And the keynote speakers were Colin Woodard, who's a journalist and historian. He talked about home rule in Maine. So basically how our municipalities began and how that came from our being part of Massachusetts. So it's very interesting, the sort of history of how municipal governance came to be. And then Anthony Flint talked about regionalism and local control, and described how the importance of towns having control about local decisions, but also working in a regional context. And our staff, it was interesting because that's what our staff does, whereas and also, regional. So for example, our manager working on waste management issues and chairing a committee that's through that many different towns are connected on this issue. So it was, somewhat academic. I love that stuff, but it also helped give some insight in how it came to be that our government structure is as it is. And, the elected officers, that kind of stuff too. But that I found that really interesting. So there's my report.
Great. Sounds great. Very informative. All right. Moving on to council chair and town manager reports. As a lot of you heard, there was an incident last week regarding a hate crime. And so there is a joint statement that is going out from the town and the university. And I'd just like to read it to you. And Sophie can then explain how it will get dispersed to the world. Late last week, town officials learned of an incident involving death threats yelled from a car at a teen walking her little brother home from school. It appears that these hateful threats were aimed at her because of the hijab she wears. This is wholly unacceptable and represents an open attack on the inclusive values that are the cornerstone of our community, both on and off campus. In our community, everyone should always feel comfortable living their lives in the open without fear of reprisal, regardless of the color of their skin, religion they practice, how they express their gender, their sexual orientation, the nation from which they hail, or their socioeconomic status. Together, the people who choose to learn and play in Orono form a community and should expect nothing short of an accepting environment where they need not fear harassment of any kind. The diversity of our residents, students, and visitors brings a rich vibrancy to our community, both on and off campus. A bigoted attack on an individual, family, or group in our community is an attack on our entire community. The town of Orono and University of Maine will not tolerate hate and threats aimed at our people, particularly those threats that are based upon some of the very attributes that define the character of Orono and the University of Maine. We hope that last week's incident was an aberration that will not be repeated, and we urge every member of our community, both on and off campus, to be vigilant in recognizing and reporting threats, bullying, and discrimination. Together, we can push back against hate and work to ensure an equitable, inclusive community for everyone. And Sophie, could you explain how that's going to go out?
So we have confirmation from the university that Robert Dana, the Vice President for Student Life, and Anila, and I say her name,
Karunakar.
Kar-
Karunakar.
who heads up the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, are both signing on to this. So we thought it to kind of match that, if Cindy and I signed on to it, so we have somebody more operational and somebody who's more visionary and in charge. Then this message would get posted on our website as a council message, but also promoted heavily in in the town's social media, and we're hoping the university will pick it up as well. Usually it can be difficult to get joint statements from the university and the town, simply because we both have our own process, and the university has been wonderful, and they see that although this happened off campus, that this is one community, and it's important that we work together in trying to foster a better environment for all of our people. So that would be the plan at this point.
Can I ask a question?
Oh,
Sure.
Sure, sorry to
Yeah.
just jump in. So, but because both are signing on, we shouldn't necessarily assume that the offending party was affiliated with the university, or should this just be, doesn't matter?
So
This is just a mutually agreed upon statement supporting, the intolerance, if you will, of what happened.
yeah, so the town, as you are aware, the council operates on a policy basis and a visionary basis. And then I operate staff on the operational basis. The town on an operational basis has been working with student life representatives on trying to create a joint response and platform from which to send this message that our community is not the university and the town. Our community is everything within our boundaries. And this message really consolidated much of what we've been talking about on the operational level. And the university has come to the table and been incredibly open and willing to kind of figure out where we are and move it forward to create an operational framework to put this work on and to make our community better.
Could I ask a question too, Sophie and Cindy? Is there an avenue to report incidents like this? Like, is there a way to add, if this happens, contact this person or call that number? Do we have any kind of pathway, I guess, like that?
So I think one of the things we're working at right now is creating the reporting pathway. The university has multiple pathways. For us, it's, call me, call Josh, call the police. And we're trying right now to formalize that. So I think this is kind of the first step, Cheryl. The next step that we're working on right now is a joint landing page on a website that details our vision for the community and what's acceptable, but also creates links for reporting and also information links for both the town, the university, and then the world in general, just in case people are interested, kind of links. And what's great is the university is really coming to the fore to help us create something that will be good. So one of the things we've been very careful about in our committee is we want some very clear frameworks built that acknowledge the fact that this is a work in progress, and this should never be something that gets created and just kind of, it's there so we can ignore it. But also sends us to each, somebody has an issue with town, they should know that the town and the university are on the same page. But if their issue is with town, they should click the town button and see how to report a concern. And I'm hoping that this will translate also into some changes on the web, on our website in general. That's probably one of our largest communication tools that we have. So the answer is yes, there's a way, and we're trying to make that very clear. With this statement, it's kind of paving the path for that framework.
And
Thank
so
you.
wouldn't you say
And-
that wouldn't you say the two new positions we've created in the police department would be another place for this to go?
Yeah, the senior community services officer, Ed Lesky, and the community services officer, Courtney James, are going to be instrumental. And, when we're talking with the university and we're talking about trying to create a campaign that makes it very clear that we don't accept discrimination in our community, and articulates where and how people should get help. And we wanted one message with one place for people to go, so that whether those magnets or clings or whatever are put up off campus or on campus, we would envision working with the business community to really kind of help make this work. But yes, it's going to be a team approach.
Right. Thank you very much for that. Sophie, I think you also had maybe an update on COVID.
I do. As I have reported to council, I had my notes, there we go. We are seeing a rise in the number of cases in our community. We would expect to see that. The cases are on the rise nationally and in the state. We care very much about our community, and we're probably out of an abundance of caution. We are going to make some changes here at the town level. The first is we're going to roll back our appointments to get into town hall, so that there is plenty of time for us to be able to disinfect and clean the area that the public is coming into in between each of the visits. So we'll still do 2 at a time because there's space, but we had tried to go down to half-hour appointments. We want to make sure that we clean everything. We are looking to move back some of our public safety efforts to response kind of closer to where we were at the beginning of the pandemic. We just do not have enough people for them to get sick and have to quarantine. We are not going to hold in-person meetings at the town. We're going to go back to Zoom and maximum of 1 person if absolutely necessary, or 2 people if absolutely necessary. But the idea being that we're not going to be opening up council chambers for groups to meet, which we had been doing that. We will be giving some guidance to staff. We're working on some other things behind the scenes that I need to talk with the university about. But we're really trying to support our staff. We don't want to lock down too much. But on the other hand, for example, one of the things where we have in place is a plan. If we get to a point where there is significant community spread, where we would split the public works crew in half, and they would work 12-hour shifts, 3 days a week, each half. We would do that so that the 2 halves didn't meet in the middle and contaminate each other, essentially, so that if we had an exposure and a group had to quarantine, we wouldn't lose the entire Public Works team. In doing that, it means if we have a storm, we normally would have an overlap with everybody here during the day and early evening, and then we would move into the split shifts in, late evening and overnight. So when a lot of the transportation, travel is happening, we would have a full crew out. We won't have that anymore. We wouldn't be able to overlap. We're not there yet, but the decisions that we make to roll back and protect staff and try not to become spreaders will impact community services. So we're thinking a lot about this. I've got a meeting with my senior team tomorrow morning to talk about this, to ensure that we're supporting our staff, to make sure that we have plans in place and that people will be treated in an equitable fashion, so we don't have one department doing one thing and another department doing something else. But our community is still a safe place to be. People need to be wearing their masks and washing their hands and keeping their social distance. We are going to continue to try to make choices that provide the necessary services to the community in a way that protects people. If people have services that they feel they need, that they're not getting, they either need to talk with a department head or to call me directly, email me directly, and we will make sure that their needs get met. It might look a little different, but I don't want anybody to go without the services that they need, and I want to be able to provide them in a way that we keep everybody safe.
And Sophie, how about testing? Is the town set up for testing?
That's one of the things we're kind of working at behind the scenes. I would like us to think about doing some asymptomatic testing, but I've got to work with our preferred provider and talk to people about how we could make that work. The issue is with asymptomatic testing, I think we would end up having to pay for that. And so some of that $56,000 or $46,000 that we have left in savings might be something that I come to you and ask for that. But I think I want to make sure we have a good plan. I know that asymptomatic testing would have to be done on a voluntary basis. That is not something that I can mandate.
I think if there's any way we can make that available, I would certainly support that. I think it's fairly well known now. Back at the end of August, I voluntarily took a free scanning at my place of employment, and I was positive. So I got to go to the inside of my house, even better, for about 2 weeks, completely asymptomatic. But also, I do, just on this follow up, I think many of our public workforce that we see are excellent examples. I mentioned Officer Lusky during the boo box, but he and Officer James were both wearing their masks. We had a nice chat from a distance with their masks on. And even though I don't necessarily think they were spreading it, the image they send, the reinforcement of wearing masks, is terribly important. And I hope the rest of our public works crews sees that as well. If they were to wear masks while they're plowing or whatever, it sends a strong message to the entire community. And I would fully support that. Not that I'm going to say we need to force anything like that, but I hope they see the benefit of that.
So I think we have an incredible staff here, and they care very deeply for the community. And so if anybody sees folks out of a vehicle where they're the only person in the vehicle, outside of that are not wearing their masks, they should be. And so they should be letting us know. We have some people who can't wear masks, but are wearing face guards, face shields that go up instead as the alternative.
Thank you.
Cindy, can I just say a couple of more things? Not about COVID, if
Yeah.
that's all right?
Yes.
I wanted to just give you a heads up that when the ladder truck goes out of the Public Works garage on a public safety building on a call, you most definitely hear it. That siren is really, really loud, and that truck is very, very large. Unfortunately, our frontline pump truck is down in Auburn getting some warranty work done. So we went to use our second line engine, and it has sprung a leak in the piping system. So we are running our ladder truck as a frontline truck right now. So you will see it move more, and it's loud, and just be prepared for it. It doesn't mean that our incidences are any more dire. It just means that that's the piece of equipment that we have for the initial response right now. Want to give you a heads up that the top floor of Town Hall, which is finance and the town manager's office, is going to be closed off Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week, as we are getting the carpets replaced. Remember, you approved that project. We finally have folks coming in to do that. So Belle and I are going to be working remotely. I'm trying to convince Belle to take some much needed R&R and try to turn that into some vacation time, because she has been working so hard keeping us up and operational in the IT world. I also wanted to give you just people talked a lot about the election, and I am so incredibly proud of my staff. Belle, Shelley, and the town office crew did an amazing job. But we had police officers that were helping out, and our public works team, and I think there might have actually been some WPCF people involved in it too, did an amazing job loading in and loading out and making sure that folks had everything they needed. It was really neat to see the team come together in an environment where we haven't really been able to be all in one place for a very long time for our team. So big shout out to Public Works. And finally, the winter is coming. Snow is going to be hitting the ground. Our community events team is trying to figure out how to celebrate without light up the night in a way that will still bring a smile to people's face and help foster this sense of community. They are hard at work, library staff, Parks and Rec staff, and community development staff. Think you'll see some pretty cool at-home activities that hopefully will make us see each other as all part of a community. I would encourage you to just be patient and wait. It's coming. Rec, Megan is a new hire, and she is just so creative, and she's doing a great job. And we're thrilled to have the holidays come up, but it's going to take a whole community to celebrate this year, I think, in a very isolated way. And then the last thing, as I said, Parks and Rec is in a different place than it normally is when you can't come together as a community. The state issued new guidance for community sports, and at this point, our basketball program really has we don't have an ability to offer it the way we normally would. So our plan at this point is to continue to evaluate and watch what other people are doing and come up with creative ways that we can keep people engaged and community focused. But I don't think you'll see that as basketball on the regular schedule this year, unfortunately. That's it.
Well, while we have you, can you explain the community dinner? So is that going to be a call-in? And
yeah,
you need us to volunteer?
So we have gone out to the community, and Belle is leading this, so I don't know if she wants to talk about it, but we've gone out to the community with a format for people to sign up to donate food and things that we need for the dinner. And you're on screen. So would you like to talk about how it's actually going to work?
Sure. So we are doing a socially distant community dinner, which means that everything is going to be delivered this year. No gathering at the community center. So and it is open to everybody who would like a meal that if I do say so myself, as the head chef, is pretty good. So there's a link to sign up for the meal on the front page of our website, or you can also call our public safety administrator. I don't know her direct dial number off the top of my head, but we can get that. Then for counselors, if you are able and willing to help pack meals, that's where we would really need the help, is getting the meals together and shipped out the door. I think that our community police officers are going to lead the charge in making sure that they get everything organized and delivered, particularly since we have a lot more deliveries that we think that we're going to be making to neighborhoods rather than just apartment complexes. And Sophie looks like she's peering at the phone list.
Yes, so our fire department administrative assistant,
Nope, police.
PD, all right.
Jessica.
That would be Jessica Mason. Her direct dial is 889-6922. Belle, you spend way too much time in my office.
And for anybody who happens to make that phone call this week, please make sure you leave a voicemail if you don't get her answering her phone right away.
And what time would you want counselors there to help pack?
I think that we are still trying to figure out our timeline since this is so different. We don't want to deliver meals too early, but at the same time, we don't want to deliver them too late. So we're kind of in conversation.
If folks let me know that you want to help do that, just drop me an email or a text. I will make sure that your name gets put on the list and that you get the itinerary for the day.
Sounds like a good plan.
I'm in.
Me too.
You know, you can't eat what we're serving, though.
What? Deal breaker.
Yeah, forget it.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Moving on to item 11. As all of council knows, I filed a letter of resignation for reasons that I outlined in my letter. It's just time. So with that, I would like to help council by asking for an election of a new council chair so that in December, you will have a new council chair to moderate the meeting. And so this council chair election would be effective December 5th. And I think that the easiest way maybe to do this is to collect nominations. And then we'll, after discussion, we'll go to a motion for whoever gets chosen. So are there any nominations for council chair?
I'd like to nominate Meg Gardner, please.
Okay. Is there any other seconds or nominations?
I would second that nomination.
Okay.
I would like to nominate Tom Perry.
Okay. Do I have any seconds for that nomination?
I'll second that.
All right. Any other nominations? All right, hearing none. Megan or Tom, I guess I'll start with Megan because you were nominated first. Would you accept this nomination if given to you?
Yes, I would accept it. Yeah, and thank you for the nomination.
And Tom, would you accept a nomination?
I would.
Okay, great. So maybe now do we want to put Megan and Tom on there? Do you want Megan and Tom to do a political speech or the people that nominated them? You want the people that nominated Terry, would you want to put forth why you would say Megan should be chair?
Yeah, I think this position is a position that really requires a really large time commitment. And if I think it's not that, I'm thinking that no one else could do it, but it does require a lot. It requires a lot of detail. It requires a lot of research. I think Meg just has that characteristic of what we need to make sure that information. I mean, she does a great job of providing informational stuff and make sure the flow goes. So and to keep a meeting flowing also. So for that reason, that's why I nominated.
Lori, would you like to say why you nominated Tom?
I would. I have worked with Tom for now 3.5 years, and I have very much appreciated his even demeanor, his management of the finance committee, his openness to hearing information from various sources. I see that he works well with Sophie. He brings to the experience of having been a superintendent, so he really understands about managing organizations with lots of people. And I personally, when I have reached out to individuals to see if they have time to chat with me about issues of importance that I find important, he's always willing, he's always responsive and pleasant and very thoughtful about whatever I approach him with, and I'm sure that he is with all of the other counselors. So I just think that that's very important for our town. Especially since we've been on Zoom, the citizens of Orono have gotten to see us deal with various issues that sometimes we have contentious meetings, and Tom is always the still point, which is that person who's listening to both sides and has a very thoughtful response. And I really appreciate that. And I think that that's something that would help carry us forward when we're losing Cindy's guidance, where she's also been very calm and thoughtful and seems to work well with Sophie. I think that it'd be a really good transition.
Thank you. Megan, would you like to say anything?
Yes, I would. And, of course, I don't disagree with any of what was said about Tom. Tom is amazing and is great, and has spent, given so much to this council and this community. I really look forward to the opportunity to try to steer this council to getting the work done for Orono, because that is our primary charge, is to be good stewards for the resources that belong to our community. And I feel very passionate about diving into the work. As you all know, I'm a workaholic and pretty excited and chomping at the bit to have an opportunity to give back in this way. So yeah, sorry, I wasn't prepared with a speech, but that's it.
Okay, I didn't give either one of you any chance. Tom, why would you like to be chair?
That's a good question. I would be interested in chairing during this interim period. I think Cindy has established a very high standard as chair. A very smooth operation. I would just like to continue that and feel that I could do that. I think we're very fortunate to have people who are willing to accept this responsibility, frankly, and I'm pleased that 2 people are willing to do it.
Yeah, I am as well. Is there anyone else that wishes to comment? And then I guess we would just ask for a motion to nominate someone for chair.
I have comments. We have 2 very strong candidates here, and who I have had the enormous pleasure of working with both for quite some time. And this is, when we look at the role, I think it's really important that we do navigate smooth passage forward and do the will or the best we can with the town. I don't think either candidate go against that at all. I question, I'm trying to sort out do we need an interim, or are we in a position where we can move to a more longer term, counselor, chair right now, a council chair?
I think the charter would require you to nominate someone again in April or
Sure.
after the election. Anyone else have anything to say? If not, maybe we could take a vote of hands. All of those in favor of Megan being chair? Okay. All of those in favor of Tom being chair? So what do we got? So I think Tom wins 4-3, if I did my math correctly. So with that, do we now need people that know more about parliamentary procedure? Do we need a formal vote?
I think it makes things much cleaner if there was moving a name forward and then a vote with a roll call.
Okay.
I move Tom Perry as council chair.
I second.
All right. Nancy, will you take a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Grenier,
In favor?
Councilor Robertson,
In favor?
Councilor Gardner,
In favor?
Councilor Maynard,
In favor?
Councilor Perry,
In favor.
Councilor Osher,
Favor?
and Councilor Coons.
In favor.
And the vote is 7 in favor, and there were none opposed.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Megan, I would strongly suggest you do it in March. And future agenda items of concern. Tom, do you have any?
I do not.
Terry?
No, I don't.
Cheryl?
Yes, I do have one, and this has come up recently with some town people, and it's just an idea, is changing, somebody has asked if we could find a way to change the dates of the parking ban, and that would be because climate change is bringing our snow events further and further down, in the months, and that some people feel that early November is just too early right now for a winter parking ban. So just a future item.
Okay.
So I would just answer that really quickly, Cheryl, to tell you that council can change the ordinance however council wishes to. But there is a caveat in that ordinance that there is the time from November 1st to April 15th. But there's also, if you read further, it talks about or during a snow event, a winter event or the subsequent cleanup. So the parking ban, the dates are easy to put out there, but it really is starting November 1st. And oh, by the way, if it's snowing, it doesn't even matter if it's during the day. You're not supposed to be parking on the street in a way that it hinders the cleanup of the roads, which any parking on the street hinders the cleanup of the roads.
Right.
Thank you. Sam, do you have any items?
I'd just like to commend us on running a very smooth election with no flyers or any sort of negative ads. It was lovely, and it's very short.
There will be a protest though somewhere.
If we could just get the 40 million that was put into the ads. Lori, do you have any items of concern or future agenda items?
Not that I can think of now.
Okay. Megan?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. So we moved on to public petitions. I don't believe we have any public comments. There are a few people on. I don't know if there's any comments. Valerie, I'm not seeing any hands raised. Are you?
No hands that I can see.
All right. And we'll move on to adjournment, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
All right. Thank you all. We'll take a
thank
vote.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Night.
Bye.